Hello there, and welcome to the AstroSleep channel. I am so glad you found your way here tonight. Maybe you've had a long, demanding day, or maybe you are simply the kind of person who finds comfort in the quiet mysteries of the natural world. Whatever brought you here, know that you have arrived at a place of safety and stillness. Tonight, we are not looking up at the distant stars or drifting through the cold vacuum of space. Instead, we are lowering our gaze. We are returning to the earth, to the soil and to the deep, emerald heart of an ancient forest. We are going to drift through the quiet kingdom of fungi, the hidden architects of our world, and explore the silent, intricate networks that hold the forest floor together in a gentle embrace. Imagine, if you will, that you are standing at the edge of a vast temperate rainforest. The air here is cool and incredibly fresh, carrying the scent of rain that has just fallen, a rich, soothing perfume of wet bark, pine needles, and dark, fertile earth. Above you, the canopy of ancient trees weaves a thick tapestry of green, filtering the moonlight into soft silver ribbons that dance slowly on the ferns below. It is a sanctuary of perfect stillness. The only sound is the rhythmic, hypnotic patter of water droplets falling from leaf to leaf, a slow, natural percussion that has been playing in this forest for millions of years. This is a world that moves at a different pace, a slower, more deliberate rhythm than the one we are used to in our waking lives. In this realm, nothing rushes. The moss grows millimeter by millimeter, covering the stones in a velvet softness. The old logs, fallen centuries ago, are slowly sinking back into the ground, held in the arms of the forest floor. It is a place where time seems to stretch out, becoming long and thin like the mist that clings to the valleys. We are here to witness the beauty of things that grow in the dark, the organisms that thrive in silence, and the invisible connections that bind every tree, every flower, and every stone into a single living breath. It helps other sleepy souls find their way here too. And now, there is nothing left for you to do but rest. The day is behind you. The demands of the world, the noise of the city, and the lists of things to do have all faded away, left at the edge of the forest. You are safe here, cocooned in this landscape of shadow and soft light. I invite you to let your mind relax, your breathing slow, and your body grow light, as if gravity itself has softened. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the surface beneath you. Imagine that your bed is a bed of soft, deep moss, resilient and cool. Let your shoulders drop away from your ears, releasing the tension they have carried all day. Unclench your jaw and let your eyes close gently. Allow your breath to find the rhythm of the forest rain, steady, slow, and nourishing. With every inhale, you breathe in the calm of the ancient trees. With every exhale, you release the dust of the day, letting it settle into the ground to be transformed. You are no longer just an observer. You are becoming part of the landscape. You are drifting down, past the ferns, past the fallen leaves, sinking gently into the welcoming embrace of the soil. It is dark here, but it is a warm, comforting darkness. It is the darkness of a seed waiting to sprout, the darkness of a root finding its way. You are entering a state of hibernation, a safe and quiet slumber where the body repairs itself and the mind wanders freely through the landscape of dreams. We are going to travel now, deeper into this hidden world. We will follow the threads of life that run beneath our feet, discovering how the forest breathes, how it communicates, and how it recycles life in an eternal, silent loop. There is no need to memorize anything. There is no test at the end of this journey. These words are simply a stream for you to float upon, Let the images wash over you like a gentle mist. If you fall asleep before we finish, that is perfectly fine. The forest will keep its secrets safe for you until you return. Let us begin our slow descent into the quiet kingdom. Let us drift into the world of the mushroom. In the quiet aftermath of the rain, the forest floor begins to stir with a movement almost too slow for the human eye to perceive. The rain has ceased its rhythmic drumming against the canopy, leaving behind a silence that feels heavy, pregnant with potential and life. Botanists and mycologists tell us that water is the primary trigger for the emergence of mushrooms, the catalyst that wakes the sleeping mycelium from its dormancy. When the heavy rains soak the earth, the fungal network hidden beneath the soil absorbs the moisture, signaling that the conditions are perfect for reproduction, for the creation of the fruit body. It is as if the forest itself is taking a deep, hydrating breath, and in response, the mushrooms begin their ascent, pushing up through the damp leaf litter like small, silent prayers answering the call of the clouds. In this slow awakening, we are reminded that life often waits for the right moment, that patience is not passivity, but a state of readiness, waiting for the nourishing touch that allows us to rise. There is a hidden power within the soft flesh of a mushroom that defies our understanding of strength. Scientific observation reveals that mushrooms do not grow by cell division in the same way plants or animals do during their final expansion, but rather through a process of hydraulic engineering. The cells of the mushroom are already formed in miniature, waiting in the button stage, and when the water arrives, these cells rapidly inflate with fluid, expanding in size like thousands of tiny balloons filling simultaneously. This process allows the mushroom to unfurl with a steady hydraulic grace, expanding from a small knot of tissue into a fully formed parasol in a matter of hours or days. Unfolding its cap with a smoothness, it teaches us that true growth does not always require the frantic energy of creation, but can simply be the act of filling ourselves with what we need, of allowing our internal potential to expand until we take up the space we were always meant to occupy. Some mushrooms possess a strength that seems impossible for something so fragile. We have found that the turgor pressure within a growing mushroom, the pressure of the water pushing against its cell walls, is immense, capable of generating force strong enough to lift heavy stones or break through solid asphalt. This phenomenon occurs because the hydraulic pressure is relentless and focused, a slow, continuous push that refuses to be denied by the rigid obstacles in its path. It is a marvel of nature to see a soft white ink-cap mushroom, which would crumble under the touch of a finger, shatter a layer of man-made pavement simply by growing, by insisting on its right to reach the air. This gentle persistence reminds us that softness can overcome hardness, that a slow, steady will can break through the most rigid barriers, and that there is a profound resilience in remaining flexible and fluid. Beneath the cap of the mushroom, there lies a masterpiece of design intended for protection. The structure of the mushroom cap, or the pileus, is evolutionary architecture at its most elegant, designed specifically to shield the delicate spore-producing surfaces underneath from the damaging effects of direct rain and wind. Just as a roof protects the inhabitants of a house, the cap creates a dry, still microenvironment beneath its dome, ensuring that the spores remain safe until they are ready to be released into the currents of the air. We can imagine the cap as a kind of organic shelter, a curved shield of velvet or leather that stands guard over the future generation, deflecting the heavy droplets of the storm so that life can continue in the dry quiet of the understory. In this protective curve, we see the universe's instinct to shelter what is precious, the way nature builds safe havens for its most fragile creations, ensuring that even in the midst of a storm, there is a dry and quiet place where life can prepare for its journey. In the intricate underbelly of the cap, we often find the gills, These delicate structures, known scientifically as lamellae, are thin paper-like ribs that radiate from the stem to the edge of the cap, packed together with incredible precision. The purpose of these gills is to maximize the surface area for spore production, allowing a single small mushroom to hold a surface area many times its own width, folded and tucked away like a complex origami fan. They look like the pages of a book that has been fanned open, or the pleated curtains of a grand theater, creating deep shadowed valleys where millions of spores hang in waiting, safe within the folds of the organism. This complexity hidden within a simple form suggests that there is always more depth than meets the eye. That beneath a simple exterior lies a vast, intricate library of potential, folded quietly away, waiting to be read by the wind. There is a scent that rises from the forest floor, which signals this process of growth. We know this smell as petrichor, but the distinct earthy aroma that we associate specifically with damp soil and mushrooms comes from a compound called geosmin. This chemical is produced by the activity of actinobacteria and fungi in the soil, released into the air when raindrops hit the dry ground, creating an aerosol of scent that speaks directly to our primal memory. It is the perfume of the earth waking up, a rich, grounding fragrance that smells of ancient history, of damp roots, and of the cycle of life turning slowly in the dark. When we inhale this scent, we are connecting with a chemical signal that has existed for billions of years, a comforting reminder that the earth is alive, that it is breathing, and that after the dry season, the relief of rain always returns to wash the world anew. Some mushrooms in this rainforest are covered in a veil during their infancy. This universal veil is a temporary membrane that wraps the entire mushroom bottom, protecting it as it pushes up through the abrasive soil and debris. As the mushroom expands and grows taller, this veil stretches and eventually ruptures, often leaving remnants behind, a cup at the base of the stem or patches of flakes on the cap, like the white spots on the iconic red fly agaric. It is a process of shedding the old to reveal the new. A slow unveiling where the protective layer that once served us is gently cast aside because it can no longer contain the growth happening within. This natural undressing reflects the necessity of change, the beauty of leaving behind the shells that once held us safe so that we can stand tall, exposed and radiant in the open air of the forest. In the architecture of the stem, there is a lesson in support. The stipe or stem of the mushroom is built to lift the cap high enough into the air currents to allow the spores to drift away. But it must do so while being incredibly lightweight. The internal structure of the stem is often composed of long, fibrous cells running vertically, acting like a bundle of microscopic pillars that provide flexibility and strength without the weight of solid wood. It stands like a lonely column in the ruins of a green cathedral, a pillar of soft white or cream that holds the roof of the cap steady against the gentle nudges of the passing breeze and the scurrying of small insects. It reminds us that we do not need to be rigid or heavy to stand tall. We can be light, we can be hollow, and still we can support the weight of our purpose, lifting our gifts up to where they can be shared with the world. There are mushrooms that do not form gills, but rather pores. Instead of paper-thin sheets, the undersides of these boletes and polypores are covered in thousands of tiny, microscopic tubes, looking like a sponge or a dense honeycomb. This variation in design serves the same purpose of increasing surface area, but it does so with a different texture, creating a soft, cushion-like surface that feels like velvet or suede to the touch. It is a testament to the diversity of solutions in nature, where the same goal is achieved through endless variations of form, from the sharp lines of gills to the soft round mouths of pores. In this variety, we find comfort in the idea that there is no single right way to be, that the forest accepts and nurtures all forms, whether they are sharp or soft, plated or porous, each one perfect in its own quiet function. In the water cycle of the mushroom, there is a constant exchange. Mushrooms are composed of nearly 90% water, making them ephemeral vessels of liquid, held in shape by a delicate framework of chitin. They are essentially standing water, given form and purpose, rising from the damp earth to hold the moisture for a few days, before dissolving back into the ground or drying into a husk. They appear like solid clouds or mist that has coalesced into a tangible shape, hovering just above the ground for a brief moment in the vast timeline of the forest. This fleeting existence teaches us the beauty of transience, that it is okay to be temporary, to rise, to be beautiful, and then to fade away, returning our substance to the great reservoir from which we came. In the stillness of the mushroom's growth, there is no sound. Unlike animals that vocalize or plants that rustle in the wind, the expansion of fungal tissue is a completely silent event, a massive biological undertaking that happens without a single whisper. Millions of tons of biomass are created every year in forests around the world through this process, lifting soil, breaking wood, and releasing spores, all within a profound. It is a hush that commands respect, a quiet productivity that proves that the most important work often happens without fanfare, without noise, in the deep, focused quiet. In observing this, we can let go of the need to be loud, to be heard, or to announce our presence. We can simply be, growing quietly in our own time, adding our own silent note to the symphony of the living world. Beneath the damp leaves and the heavy logs where the mushrooms rise, there exists a much larger, hidden world that remains unseen by the casual observer. Biologists explain that the mushroom we see is merely the fruit of the organism, a temporary reproductive structure similar to an apple on a tree, while the true body of the fungus lies buried underground. This vegetative part is called the mycelium, a vast perennial network of living threads that spreads horizontally through the soil, occupying a space far greater than the small cap that breaks the surface. It is like an iceberg of life, where the visible portion is but a tiny fraction of the whole, a fleeting signal sent up from a massive, silent consciousness that dwells permanently in the dark. This hidden vastness reminds us that what is visible is often the least significant part of existence, and that our true depth, like that of the fungus, lies in the quiet, unseen layers of our being that support everything else. There is a delicate structure to these underground threads that defies our sense of scale. The individual strands of this network are called hyphae, and they are microscopic tubes often only 1 cell wide, fine enough to navigate the tiniest gaps between grains of sand. These hyphae grow by lengthening at their tips, pushing forward into the unknown with a fluid pressure, branching and fusing to create a complex, chaotic, yet perfectly efficient web. They appear like a spill of white ink moving in slow motion through the black earth, or like the finest silver silk spun by a ghost spider weaving a tapestry that covers the entire floor of the forest. In this fragility, we see a paradox of nature, where the strongest foundations are built from the most delicate materials, woven together until they become resilient enough to hold the earth itself in place. Within a single teaspoon of healthy forest soil, there is a density of life that is difficult to comprehend. Scientists have measured that such a small amount of earth can contain several miles of these fungal threads, packed together in a tight, living labyrinth. This incredible density allows the fungus to thoroughly explore its environment, ensuring that no pocket of moisture or nutrient is left undiscovered, creating a mesh so fine that it interacts with nearly every particle of soil. We can imagine the ground beneath us not as solid rock or dirt, but as a thick, soft mattress of living cotton. a woven quilt of millions of miles of thread that cushions the roots of the trees. It suggests that we are never truly standing on empty ground, but are always supported by a complex, living embrace, a density of care that surrounds and uplifts the world from below. There is a specific color that defines this subterranean realm. Unlike the plants above that reach for the sun and turn green with chlorophyll, the mycelium lives in perpetual darkness and has no need for light to create its energy. It remains a stark, ghostly white, or sometimes a pale cream, radiating a kind of lunar brightness against the dark organic matter of the soil. It looks like veins of moonlight trapped in the earth, or the pale roots of stars that have burrowed down instead of shining up, creating a network of light that exists only for the worms and the roots. This pale beauty teaches us that one does not need the spotlight or the sun to shine. There is a luminosity in the dark, a quiet, pale inner light that sustains us even when we are far from the surface. The movement of the mycelium is a masterclass in slow, deliberate navigation. Without eyes to see or a brain to process, the hyphae must navigate the complex obstacle course of the soil through a sense of touch and chemical reception. They grow outward in search of food and water, sensing the environment at their very tips, turning away from toxins and steering toward the signals of nourishment with an uncanny intelligence. It is a blind, trusting journey, a slow groping through the dark, where the organism feels its way forward 1 millimeter at a time, trusting that the path will reveal itself. This reminds us that we do not always need to see the destination to begin the journey. We can move forward by feeling, by sensing what nourishes us, and gently turning toward it, trusting our instincts in the dark. There is a profound patience embedded in the life cycle of these threads. Mycelium is capable of entering a state of dormancy, pausing its growth when resources are scarce or conditions are too dry. It can wait in this suspended state for weeks, months, or even decades, conserving its energy in a deep biological meditation until the rain returns or a tree falls to provide food. It is like a sleeper who knows exactly when to wake, a spirit of the soil that understands that time is not an enemy to be raced, but a medium to be inhabited. In this ability to wait, we find permission to pause in our own lives, to rest when the season is dry, and to trust that we will know exactly when it is time to wake up and grow again. There is a structural role that these threads play in the integrity of the land. As the mycelium weaves through the soil, it binds the particles of dirt together, creating a crumb structure that allows the soil to hold water and air. Without this binding agent, the forest floor would be loose dust, easily washed away by the rain or blown away by the wind. The fungus literally glues the landscape together. It acts as the invisible stitching of the world, a glorious, chaotic hem that keeps the fabric of the forest from unraveling under the stress of the elements. This silent work speaks to the importance of connection, showing us that it is our relationships, the invisible threads we weave between us, that hold our world together and prevent us from drifting apart. The digestion of the mycelium happens in a way that is the reverse of our own. Instead of consuming food and digesting it internally, the fungus secretes enzymes out into the world, breaking down the organic matter externally and then absorbing the nutrients through its cell walls. It dissolves the barriers between itself and the world, turning the hard wood and the tough leaves into a liquid sustenance that it can drink in through its skin. It is an act of ultimate intimacy with the environment, where the boundary between the eater and the eaten becomes blurred, a gentle melting of the world into the self. It suggests a way of being where we do not take from the world, but rather merge with it, softening the hard edges of reality until we can absorb the lessons and the nourishment we need. There is a resilience in the network's ability to repair itself, If a shovel cuts through the soil or an animal digs a burrow, severing the threads of the mycelium, the network does not die. The separated strands immediately begin to grow toward each other or reroute their energy to forge new paths. It is a fluid, self-mending system that treats obstacles not as failures, but as instructions to change direction, to weave a new pattern over the scar. This capacity for repair offers us a comfort that no break is final, that our connections can be rewoven, and that we possess an innate ability to heal the rifts in our own lives simply by reaching out again. There are ancient memories stored in these chemical pathways. Because the network is continuous and can live for thousands of years, the chemical signals that travel through it can be seen as a form of biological memory, a record of what the forest has endured. The mycelium remembers where the rich veins of nutrients are. It remembers the path of the drought, holding a map of the landscape that is updated constantly over centuries. It is the brain of the forest, a decentralized mind that thinks in slow pulses of carbon and nitrogen, holding the history of the land in its white, silent neurons. We can rest in the knowledge that we are held by a world that remembers, that nothing is truly lost, but is kept safe in the deep, silent archives of the earth. There is a specific geometry to how the mycelium expands. When unhindered, it grows outward in a perfect circle, radiating from a central point like a ripple in a slow-moving pond. This radial symmetry is the most efficient way to cover ground, ensuring that every direction is explored equally, creating a beautiful, expanding mandala of life beneath the grass. It moves with the elegance of a slow explosion, a silent firework of growth that blooms outward, claiming its space with a gentle, circular perfection. It teaches us that balanced growth moves in all directions, that we can expand our horizons without losing our center, radiating our presence outward in a calm, steady circle. Even in the deepest winter, under layers of snow, the mycelium is awake. While the plants above ground have shed their leaves and gone dormant, the fungal network below the frost line continues its slow metabolic work. This metabolic heat can sometimes be seen melting small pockets of snow on the surface, a subtle sign of the warm life enduring beneath the cold white blanket. It is the hearth of the forest, a low-burning fire that never truly goes out, keeping the spark of life alive through the longest, coldest nights. In this, we find the promise that even in our coldest moments, when the world feels frozen and still, there is a warmth deep within us that continues to burn, a quiet life that winter cannot touch. Deep within the soil, where the roots of the great cedars and Douglas firs reach down into the dark, a silent negotiation is taking place that has continued for millions of years. Biologists call this relationship mycorrhiza, a term derived from the Greek words for fungus and root, describing a symbiotic partnership that is one of the most ancient and fundamental alliances on our planet. It begins when the microscopic threads of the mycelium gently wrap themselves around the tips of the tree roots, or even penetrate the root cells themselves, creating a physical bridge between two completely different kingdoms of life. It is like a handshake that never ends, a permanent embrace where the tree and the mushroom decide to face the challenges of the world together rather than alone, blurring the lines where one organism ends and the other begins. In this union, we find the comforting truth that independence is an illusion, and that true strength comes not from standing apart, but from the willingness to be entangled, to let our roots intertwine with others in a mutual reliance. There is a currency of life that flows through this connection, a trade as vital as the flow of blood in our veins. The trees, with their canopy of leaves high above, are masters of capturing energy from the sun, converting light into sugars through the miracle of photosynthesis, a wealth of carbon that the underground fungi cannot produce for themselves. In exchange for this liquid sunlight, the fungi act as master miners, using their fine threads to scour the soil for phosphorus, nitrogen, and water. Extracting nutrients from places the tree roots are too thick to reach and delivering them directly into the tree's system, we can imagine a river of sweetness flowing down from the sky, meeting a rising tide of minerals from the deep earth. A perfect circle of giving and receiving, where no one takes more than they give. This balance teaches us the elegance of reciprocity, the peace that comes when we offer our own unique gifts to the world and humbly accept what others offer in return, creating a cycle of abundance that sustains everyone. This network does far more than simply trade food. It connects the forest into a single cohesive society. Scientists have discovered that the mycelial network actually links the root systems of different trees together, creating a vast underground web that has been poetically named the Wood Wide Web. Through these fungal pipelines, a tree growing in the sunlight can actually send excess carbon to a neighbor growing in the shade, physically sharing its energy with a completely different individual to ensure the community survives. It paints a picture of the forest not as a collection of solitary competitors fighting for space, but as a vast cooperative family holding hands beneath the soil, passing sustenance from the strong to the weak in a quiet act of solidarity. This hidden kindness reminds us that beneath the surface of our own separate lives, there may be connections we cannot see, silent threads of support that bind us together, ensuring that when one of us falters, there is a network ready to catch us. At the center of these networks often stand the oldest, largest trees, which researchers have fondly termed mother trees. These ancient giants act as the central hubs of the forest, their massive root systems connecting to hundreds of other trees of various ages, anchoring the web like the heavy, steady heart of a community. Through the fungal threads, these mother trees have been observed sending distinct pulses of carbon to their own seedlings, effectively nursing their young that are struggling in the deep shade of the understory, giving them the strength to wait until it is their turn to rise. It is a vision of maternal care that transcends the animal kingdom, a slow, silent nurturing where the wisdom and resources of the old are poured endlessly into the potential of the new. In the shadow of the mother tree, we feel the safety of being watched over, the reassurance that there are ancient forces in the world that are looking out for us, feeding us in the dark until we are ready to find our own light. There is also a language of warning that travels through these organic wires. When a tree is attacked by pests or damaged, it can send chemical distress signals through the fungal network to its neighbors, warning them of the approaching danger so they can raise their own chemical defenses. This communication happens in complete silence, a slow ripple of information that moves through the cool, damp earth, allowing the forest to react as a single, intelligent entity, anticipating the future before it arrives. It is like a whisper passing through a crowded room, a protective secret shared among friends that keeps the whole group safe without ever making a sound. This shared vigilance comforts us with the idea that we do not have to face our dangers alone, that the community around us is listening, and that the warnings we need often arrive in quiet, subtle ways if we are still enough to feel them. Remarkably, this fungal bridge connects not just trees of the same family, but can link entirely different species in a cooperative bond. In the changing seasons, evergreen trees have been found to share nutrients with deciduous trees like birch when the birch has lost its leaves, and later, the birch returns the favor when the evergreen is shaded in the summer. This dynamic exchange suggests that in the deep wisdom of the forest, diversity is not a barrier to cooperation, but a reason for it. Because they are different, they have different times of plenty and want, and can therefore support each other through the cycles of time. It is a graceful dance of seasonal generosity. a partnership that ignores the boundaries of species to focus on the universal goal of survival. It teaches us that our differences are what allow us to help each other, that we can lean on those who are unlike us, trusting that their strengths will cover our weaknesses in the turning of the seasons. The scale of this network turns the concept of the individual on its head. If we could strip away the soil and see the forest only by its biological connections, we would not see 1,000 separate trees, but one single continuous organism, woven together by the silver threads of the fungi. The boundaries between the self and the other dissolve in this intricate mesh, suggesting that the forest is actually a singular consciousness, a collective being that breathes and grows as one. It is a realm where the concept of mine and yours becomes meaningless, replaced by the flow of ours, a shared existence where the health of the one is indistinguishable from the health of the whole. In this dissolution of the self, there is a profound relief, a letting go of the burden of being a separate, isolated ego, allowing us to rest in the knowledge that we are part of something vast and indivisible. This underground web is not like our human internet, which is filled with noise, data, and frantic speed. The Wood Wide Web carries its information at the speed of a slow chemical pulse, a deliberate and measured pace that has no concept of urgency or deadline. It is a network of calm carrying only what is essential. It is a communication system built on silence and slowness, proving that the most important messages do not need to be shouted or rushed. They can drift slowly through the dark and still arrive exactly when they are needed. This slow connection invites us to unplug from the frantic pace of our own networks and tune into a deeper, slower frequency, where the connection is less about information and more about presence. There is a deep trust inherent in this biological barter. The tree gives up its sugar with no guarantee of return, and the fungus yields its minerals with no contract signed. Both organisms operating on a biological faith that the cycle will continue. This trust has been established over 400 million years of coevolution, a partnership so successful that it allowed the very first plants to colonize the dry land, transforming a barren rock into the green paradise we know today. It is a relationship built on the bedrock of deep time, a testament to the power of cooperation over conflict, proving that those who learn to work together are the ones who inherit the earth. It encourages us to trust in the cycles of our own lives, to give freely without the immediate anxiety of return, knowing that the balance of the universe tends toward reciprocity. Even in death, the network plays a role in the legacy of the forest. When a great tree finally falls, the fungal network remains plugged into its dying roots, slowly redistributing the remaining legacy of nutrients to the surrounding trees, ensuring that the giant's resources are not lost, but inherited by its neighbors. The dying tree is gently disassembled by the very network that sustained it, its energy flowing back into the community to fuel the next generation. A final act of generosity facilitated by the fungi. It is a transition that is soft and meaningful, where the end of one life becomes the nourishment for many others, a peaceful transfer of energy that ensures nothing ever truly ends. In this light, we can see that we are part of a continuous flow, that what we build and what we are will eventually drift back into the great web of life, supporting those who come after us in a quiet, eternal legacy. The darkness of the soil, therefore, is not a place of isolation, but the busiest social hub of the planet. In every step we take across the forest floor, we are walking on top of 1 trillion conversations, 1 billion acts of sharing, and a boundless web of support. It is a hidden layer of kindness that underpins the visible world, a secret foundation of love, if we define love as the willingness to nurture another, that holds the forest up. Knowing this, we can walk more gently, sleeping more soundly with the awareness that the ground beneath us is not just dirt, but a living, holding embrace that has been practicing the art of connection since the dawn of time. In the deepest shadows of the forest, where the canopy is thickest and the air is still, lies the realm of the fallen. Here we encounter the massive trunk of an ancient oak or a towering pine that has finally succumbed to gravity. To the human eye, this might look like the end of a story, a tragedy of loss where a majestic life has ceased to be. But in the quiet wisdom of the fungal kingdom, this is not an end but a beginning. It is not a death but a transformation. It is the start of the gentle art of decay, a slow, deliberate process where the rigid structures of the past are softened, unraveled, and returned to the fluid cycle of the earth. This perspective invites us to reframe our own fears of endings, seeing them not as final stops but as necessary transitions, a softening of the self so that we may become something new. The agents of this transformation are known to science as saprotrophs. These are the decomposers, the fungi, that specialize in the consumption of dead organic matter, acting as the forest's patient undertakers and recyclers. Unlike the predators of the animal kingdom that hunt and chase, the saprotroph waits. It arrives only when the life has left, settling gently upon the fallen leaves and wood with a touch that is respectful and slow. They are the unmakers of the world, the silent dismantlers who take apart the complex structures that life has built, untying the knots of existence one molecule at a time. In their presence we find a strange comfort, the knowledge that there is a force in the universe dedicated to tidying up, to ensuring that nothing is left wasted or forgotten, but that every fallen thing is gathered up and repurposed with care. Wood is composed of cellulose and lignin, two of the toughest, most durable biological polymers on Earth, designed specifically to resist breakdown and hold the tree upright against the storms. Lignin, in particular, is a complex, chaotic molecule that acts as the concrete of the plant world, a fortress that very few organisms can breach. But the white rot fungi possess a unique alchemy. They release specialized peroxidase enzymes that wash over the wood like a microscopic tide, unlocking the chemical bonds that hold the lignin together. It is a process of softening the rigid, of turning the hard, unyielding wood into something soft, pale and stringy, stripping away the armor until only the raw potential remains. It teaches us that even the hardest defenses can be overcome by gentle persistence, that time and patience can soften the most rigid barriers, turning the stone of our worries into the soft soil of peace. There is a visual beauty to this unmaking that artists have long admired. As the fungi move through the wood, they often leave behind distinct lines of black, red, or green, marking the boundaries of their colonies in a phenomenon known as spalting. These winding, chaotic lines look like ancient maps drawn with ink on parchment, or the topographic contours of a secret landscape hidden inside the log. Woodworkers prize this spalted wood for its beauty, recognizing that the decay has added a layer of complexity and art to the grain that the living tree never possessed. It suggests that there is a unique beauty in our scars and our aging, that the process of being worn down by life leaves behind a pattern that is intricate and irreplaceable, a map of where we have been and what we have weathered. A decaying log acts like a massive organic sponge, soaking up the rainwater and holding it within its crumbling cells long after the surrounding soil has dried out. In the heat of summer, these nurse logs become cool reservoirs of life, providing a damp haven for salamanders, mosses, and seedling trees that need water to survive. The tree, in its act of falling apart, becomes more giving than it ever was when it was standing. It becomes a vessel of sustenance, sacrificing its form to offer a drink to the thirsty forest. This reminds us that in our moments of falling apart, in our times of vulnerability, we often have the most to give. Our softness becomes a refuge for others, and our openness allows life to flow through us more freely. This is the dark, rich organic matter that forms the top layer of the soil, the black gold of the forest that smells of deep time and fertility. Humus is chemically stable and incredibly complex, a substance that improves the texture of the earth. It is literally the physical memory of the forest, composed of the broken-down bodies of 1,000 generations of trees, leaves, and insects, all blended into a uniform, nourishing darkness. When we rest on the ground, we are resting on history, on a mattress made from the past that has been kindly processed into a bed for the future. It comforts us to know that nothing is ever truly lost. The past is simply composted, turned into the rich soil from which the new moment can grow. There is a complete absence of waste in this system. In the human world, we create trash, things that have no further use and are cast aside. But in the kingdom of fungi, the concept of waste does not exist. Every fallen twig, every shed snakeskin, every dropped feather is seen as a resource, a packet of energy waiting to be unlocked. The forest operates on a perfect, closed-loop economy, where the output of one process becomes the input of the next, a circle of grace where every need is met by what has been left behind. This perfect efficiency allows us to relax, to let go of the anxiety of being productive or useful in a human sense, and to trust that simply by being, by living, and eventually letting go, we are contributing to the cycle in a meaningful way. As the metabolic activity of the fungi and bacteria breaks down the organic bonds, energy is released in the form of warmth, creating a microclimate that is significantly warmer than the surrounding air. If you were to place your hand inside a pile of composting leaves on a frosty morning, you would feel a gentle, living heat, the thermal echo of the sunlight that was captured by the leaves years ago. The fungi are literally releasing the stored sunshine of the past, unlocking the solar energy that the tree hoarded during its life, and offering it back to the cold earth. It is a beautiful image of release, that in our final letting go, we release the warmth we have gathered, warming the world one last time with the stored light of our days. There is a sound to this process, though it is nearly inaudible. It is the sound of structural collapse on a microscopic level, the tiny snapping sounds of cell walls giving way, of fibers separating, of gravity finally claiming its prize. But on a macro scale, it manifests as a profound silence, a dampening of sound. The soft, rotting wood absorbs noise, making the deep forest feel muffled and private. It creates an acoustic cushion, a velvet room where footsteps are silenced and voices are swallowed. In this quiet, we can hear the stillness of our own minds, the silence that comes when we stop fighting to hold things together and simply allow gravity to hold us. The brown rot fungi work in a slightly different way. Unlike the white rot that eats lignin, brown rot fungi primarily target the cellulose, the sugary fibers of the wood, leaving the brown lignin behind in a cubical, checkered pattern. This creates cubical rot, where the wood breaks into neat rectangular blocks that crumble into a fine brown powder at the slightest touch. It is a process of geometric dismantling, a structured deconstruction that turns the solid beam into a collection of soft brown dust that returns instantly to the soil. It shows us that there are many ways to come undone, that we can break apart in patterns that are orderly and predictable, returning to the basic building blocks of carbon to be used again. This constant recycling means that the atoms in your body have been here before. The carbon in your breath, the calcium in your bones, the nitrogen in your DNA, all of it has likely passed through the mycelial web of a fungus at some point in deep history. We are made of recycled star stuff, yes, but we are also made of recycled earth stuff, processed and purified by the diligent work of the fungi. We are borrowed arrangements of matter, held together for a brief moment of consciousness before we too are returned to the lone officer of the earth. This is not a morbid thought, but a liberating one. It connects us to the dinosaur, to the ancient fern, to the mushroom, and to the star, weaving us into a tapestry of matter that is eternal even if our forms are temporary. We spend so much of our lives trying to climb to grow taller, to accumulate, to resist the pull of the earth. But the fungus thrives on the fall. It celebrates the descent of the leaf, the toppling of the tree, the return to the horizontal. It reminds us that falling is not failing. Falling is simply returning home, returning to the level where we can be held, where we can rest, where we can be nourished. Tonight, you can stop climbing. You can stop striving. You can let yourself fall, gently and safely into the arms of the mattress, into the gravity of sleep. You can let your thoughts decompose, breaking down from their rigid, complex structures into soft, formless dreams. You can let the day dissolve, turning into the dark, rich soil of rest from which tomorrow will grow. If we were to travel back in time, far beyond the memory of the oldest forest, back billions of years to a younger Earth, we would find a world of silence and stone. Before the first roots of the great trees cracked the soil, and before the ferns unfurled their green flags, the continents were barren landscapes of raw, grey rock, jagged and unforgiving under the ancient sun. But even in this desolate theatre, life found a way to take hold, arriving in the form of the most humble and enduring pioneers, the lichens, the stone-eaters. These are the organisms that paved the way for everything that followed, the silent architects who took the hard, unyielding crust of the planet and patiently ground it down into the first fertile dust. In their story, we find the incredible power of gentleness, the truth that even the hardest obstacles in our lives can be worn down not by force, but by a slow, persistent, and quiet resolve. To understand the lichen, we must understand that it is not a single individual, but a marriage. Biologists describe lichen not as a single organism, but as a symbiotic partnership between a fungus and a partner capable of photosynthesis, usually an alga or a cyanobacterium. It is a relationship of perfect balance where the fungus builds the house, a tough, protective outer skin that shields the pair from drought and radiation, while the alga lives safely inside, catching the sunlight to make sugar for both of them. It is a biological romance, a decision made billions of years ago to face the harshness of the universe together rather than alone, creating a composite being that is stronger than the sum of its parts. This union teaches us that we do not have to be complete on our own. We can find shelter in others and offer our own light in return, creating a shared life that can survive where no individual could stand. The survival strategy of the lichen involves a feat that seems magical. They eat rock. While plants need soil to grow, lichens have evolved the ability to anchor themselves directly onto the surface of bare granite, basalt, or sandstone, clinging to the stone with a grip that can withstand hurricane winds. Once attached, the fungal partner begins a process of biological alchemy, secreting specialized organic acids, such as oxalic acid, which seep into the microscopic pores of the stone. These chemical whispers slowly dissolve the mineral bonds of the rock, releasing essential nutrients like calcium and iron, which the lichen absorbs, literally drinking the mountain to sustain its life. It is a slow, digestive kiss, a way of drawing nourishment from the most unlikely of places, reminding us that if we are patient enough, we can find sustenance even in the hardest and most barren moments of our lives. This process is known to geologists as biological weathering. It is a mechanism of erosion that operates on a timescale almost too slow for us to comprehend, where a single colony of lichen might take centuries to weather a fraction of an inch of stone. Yet, over the vast expanse of deep time, these tiny, colorful crusts have been responsible for breaking down entire mountain ranges, turning jagged peaks into rounded hills and reducing boulders to pebbles. They are the sculptors of the earth, working with the chisel of time and the hammer of chemistry to soften the sharp edges of the world. It offers a comforting perspective on our own struggles. Like the mountain under the lichen, our problems may seem hard and immovable, but they are being slowly weathered away by the quiet, steady forces of time and patience. The legacy of this stone-eating is the creation of soil. As the lichen grows and eventually dies, its organic body mixes with the tiny grains of sand and mineral dust it has liberated from the rock. This mixture creates the very first, thin layer of primitive soil, a small pocket of fertility in a landscape of stone that invites mosses to settle, which in turn die and create more soil for ferns, and eventually for trees. We are literally walking on the work of these ancient fungi. Every handful of dark earth in your garden began eons ago with a lichen dissolving a rock. We rest upon a foundation laid by their patience, a reminder that the small, unnoticed work we do today may be laying the groundwork for forests of the future that we will never see. The resilience of lichen is legendary among astrobiologists. These organisms are capable of entering a state of cryptobiosis, a suspension of life where they dry out completely, becoming brittle and dormant, shutting down their metabolism until it is virtually undetectable. In this state, they can survive the vacuum of space, the intense radiation of the sun, and temperatures close to absolute zero, only to reawaken within minutes of being touched by a single drop of water. They are the masters of waiting, able to pause their existence when conditions are unbearable, and resume it seamlessly when the time is right. This ability to pause invites us to be kinder to ourselves when we feel stuck or stagnant. Perhaps we are simply in a season of dormancy, waiting for the rain, preserving our energy until the conditions are right to bloom again. Visually, lichens paint the rocks with the colors of time. If you look closely at an old stone wall or a rocky cliff, you will see them as splashes of rust orange, pale mint green, sulfur yellow, and slate gray, creating a mosaic of living art on the inanimate surface. These colors often come from complex chemicals produced to protect the alga from UV radiation, acting as a natural sunscreen that happens to be beautiful. They turn the monochrome gray of the geological world into a canvas of muted, earthy tones, proving that life has an innate desire to decorate existence, to bring color and variety to even the bleakest surfaces. In viewing these slow paintings, we can appreciate the beauty of aging, the way time adds color and texture to the surface of things, making the old and weather-beaten far more beautiful than the new. There is a specific type of lichen. Rhizocopon geographicum grows in the high mountains and the Arctic, forming distinct yellow-green patches, bordered by black lines that look remarkably like the borders of countries on a map. These lichens grow so slowly and regularly that scientists use them to date the retreat of glaciers and the age of megalithic stone statues, a science called lichenometry. Some of these individual patches are thousands of years old, living quietly on their rock while empires rise and fall, while climates shift, and while humanity bustles about its hurried business. They are the silent watchers of history, the keepers of deep time who measure the passing of millennia in millimeters. To think of them is to slow down our own internal clock, to step out of the frantic second-hand ticking of modern life and sync our breath with the slow century-long inhale of the mountain. The texture of lichen varies as much as its color. Some are crustose, painting themselves flat against the rock like a second skin. Others are folios, peeling up like dried leaves or crinkled paper. And some are fruticose, branching out like tiny leafless coral reefs in the air. When dry, they are rough and sandpaper-like to the touch, armored against the elements. But after a rain, they transform, swelling with water to become soft, fleshy and pliable, yielding to the touch like velvet or wet leather. This physical transformation reflects a deep flexibility, a willingness to harden when protection is needed and soften when nourishment is available. It teaches us the wisdom of adaptability, of knowing when to be firm and when to be open, responding to the weather of our lives with a fluid grace. In the cleanest air, we find the beard lichens, hanging from the branches of old trees in ancient forests. Distinct from the rock dwellers, these Asnia lichens drape like long, pale green beards of wizards or tangled, distinct fishing nets capturing the mist. They are extremely sensitive to pollution, growing only where the air is pure and clean, making them natural indicators of environmental health. When we see them draping the forest in their ghostly, delicate curtains, we know we are breathing air that is pristine, air that is good for the lungs and the blood. They are the guardians of purity, silent alarms that fade away when the world becomes too toxic, reminding us to cherish and protect the clean, quiet places that remain. Even in the most extreme deserts, lichens find a way. In the Atacama or the dry valleys of Antarctica, where rain might not fall for decades, endolithic lichens actually grow inside the translucent crystals of porous rocks. They hide within the stone itself, using the rock as a greenhouse window to let in light, while holding on to microscopic amounts of moisture trapped between the grains. It is a life of extreme interiority, a thriving existence hidden completely beneath the surface, known only to the rock and the organism. This secret life validates our own inner worlds, assuring us that even when we show nothing to the outside world, we can be alive and growing deep within, protected by the very walls we have built around our hearts. The relationship between the lichen and the rock is not just one of consumption, but of protection. While the acids slowly weather the stone, the cover of the lichen also shields the rock from the rapid heating and cooling of the sun and wind. It is a complex interaction where the lichen slowly consumes the rock but also bandages it, covering the bare mineral in a living blanket that moderates the temperature. It is a gentle, complex embrace, a slow dance of erosion and protection that blurs the line between the living and the non-living. It suggests that everything in the universe is in conversation with everything else, that the rock speaks to the lichen and the lichen speaks to the rock, in a language of chemistry and friction that lasts for eons. As we drift deeper into sleep, we can imagine ourselves becoming like the lichen. We are settling onto a solid, stable foundation, anchoring ourselves to the bedrock of rest. We are slowing our metabolism, letting go of the need to move, to act, or to achieve. We are becoming still, incredibly still, content to simply exist on the surface of the moment, absorbing the quiet nourishment of the night. We are patient, we are enduring, and we are safe. Like the lichen on the stone, we have nowhere to go and nothing to do but to be held by the earth and wait for the gentle return of the light. The rock holds us. The time holds us. The silence covers us like a soft, green blanket. To truly understand the legacy of the fungi, we must ask our minds to drift backward, far beyond the age of the dinosaurs, to a time known as the Devonian period, some 400 million years ago. If we were to stand upon the ancient continents of that era, we would not recognize the landscape that stretched out before us, for it was a world that had not yet invented the tree. The tallest plants were mere waist-high carpets of mosses, ferns, and liverworts, clinging close to the damp ground, creating a flat green horizon that offered no shade and no canopy. But rising from this low vegetation, Dotting the landscape like mysterious obelisks stood the Prototaxites, the true giants of the deep past. These were not trees, but colossal fungi, towering pillars of living tissue that reached up to 8 meters into the prehistoric sky and measured more than a meter in width. In this ancient garden, the mushroom was the master, a towering king that looked down upon the green world with a quiet, dominant grace, casting the very first long shadows across the surface of our planet. The fossilized remains of these organisms tell a story of a completely different order of life. When paleontologists first discovered these massive trunk-like fossils, they were baffled, initially mistaking them for ancient conifers or rolled-up mats of algae, because their size seemed impossible for a fungus. But microscopic analysis revealed that they were not made of wood or bark, but of tubes, millions of tiny, interwoven fungal tubes packed together with incredible density to form a structure as hard as stone. They stood like silent sentinels, vast totems of soft tissue that had achieved the structural integrity of oak, defying gravity not with the rigid lignin of plants, but with the woven strength of the mycelium. It paints a picture of a world where softness had found a way to be strong, where the delicate thread had learned to build a skyscraper, proving that one does not need to be hard to stand tall and enduring. Imagine the silence that surrounded these giants. In this Devonian world, there were no birds to sing in the morning, no mammals to scurry through the underbrush, and the air was not yet filled with the buzzing of complex insect life. The Prototaxites stood in a profound planetary hush, accompanied only by the sound of the wind whistling around their smooth, pillar-like bodies and the soft hiss of the rain. It was a meditative era of the Earth, a time of slow, quiet growth where the loudest sound was the shifting of the tides or the distant rumble of a volcano. To visit this time in our minds is to step into a library of silence, a place where we can escape the constant noise of the modern world and rest in the shadow of a giant that asks for nothing but to exist. The appearance of these fungal spires was likely alien yet beautiful. Scientists speculate that they may have been pale yellow, cream, or perhaps a muted earthy red, standing out starkly against the green carpet of the low plants and the grey of the rocky hills. Some may have been branched like candelabras, holding up their arms in a gesture of reception, while others were singular, phallic columns pointing straight to the clouds. They were the original cathedrals of nature, the first structures to bridge the gap between the soil and the sky, creating a vertical dimension in a horizontal world. In their presence, we feel a sense of awe for the varied forms of life, realizing that the shape of a tree is just one answer to the question of how to reach the light, and that once long ago, the fungus held the answer. The diet of the Prototaxites reveals their interconnected nature. As vast as they were, they did not photosynthesize. Like all fungi, they were heterotrophs, meaning they had to feed on existing organic matter. Their massive root systems likely spread out for acres beneath the prehistoric soil, absorbing the nutrients from the decaying mosses and bacterial mats that covered the wet earth. They were the great recyclers of their age, gathering the waste of the small world below and transforming it into these magnificent, towering bodies. It suggests a beautiful alchemy where the smallest, most humble decay is lifted up and transmuted into the grandest structure on the horizon, a lesson that even the lowest things can be raised to heights of majesty. The growth rings of these fossils offer us a glimpse into the rhythm of deep time. When cross-sections of Prototaxites are polished, they reveal concentric circles that look remarkably like the growth rings of a modern tree, though they are formed by layers of fungal tubes. These rings record the passing of ancient seasons, marking the wet years and the dry years, the times of plenty and the times of want that occurred millions of centuries before humanity was born. They are the vinyl records of the Paleozoic era, storing the climate data of a lost world in their stone grooves. Tracing these rings with our minds, we connect with the heartbeat of the ancient earth, feeling the slow, rhythmic pulse of seasons that turned over and over in the deep, quiet past. Eventually, the reign of the giant fungi came to an end. As the vascular plants evolved, developing true wood and leaves, the first forests of trees began to rise, shading out the ground and competing for water and nutrients. The Prototaxites, unable to compete with the efficient photosynthesis of the new forests, slowly faded from the fossil record, retreating from their position as the lords of the landscape. But they did not truly disappear. They simply changed tactics, moving underground, shrinking their fruit bodies, and becoming the subtle, hidden network that now supports the very trees that replaced them. It is a story of humility and adaptation, showing that true survival is not about holding on to power forever, but about knowing when to step back, when to change form, and how to find a new purpose in the changing world. There is a comfort in knowing that the landscape we see today is just one chapter in a long book. We look at the oak and the pine and think they are the eternal rulers of the forest, but the fossils of Prototaxites remind us that they are merely the current tenants. The earth has worn many different faces, and it has supported many different forms of grandeur. This deep perspective relieves us of the pressure of permanence. We realize that everything changes, that giants rise and fall, and that it is perfectly natural for one era to give way to the next. We can rest in the flow of this long history, drifting like a leaf on the river of time, safe in the knowledge that change is the only constant. In some parts of the world, you can still touch these giants. In places like the Gaspe Peninsula in Canada or the deserts of Saudi Arabia, the fossilized trunks of Prototaxites can still be found lying on the ground or embedded in cliffs. They have turned to stone cold and hard to the touch, but they still hold the shape of their soft, living ancestors. To touch one is to touch a bridge across 400 million years, a physical link to a day when the air tasted different and the light fell on a different world. It grounds us, pulling our attention away from the fleeting worries of the minute and anchoring it to the solid, heavy reality of the eons. The atmosphere of the Prototaxites world was likely rich and humid. Without the massive transpiration of modern forests, the air would have hung heavy and still, filled with the moisture of the nearby shallow seas. Mist would have been a constant companion, swirling around the bases of the giant pillars, blurring the horizon and softening the edges of reality. We can imagine resting at the foot of one of these soft giants, leaning our back against its smooth fungal skin, hidden in the protective fog of the Devonian morning. It is a safe place, a place before predators, before noise, before the complexity of the modern mind. Their disappearance paved the way for us. By breaking down the rocks and processing the organic matter for millions of years, the Prototaxites helped to build the deep, fertile soils that eventually allowed the flowering plants and the hardwood forests to thrive. They were the terraformers of Earth, preparing the bed for the life that was to come, sacrificing their dominance to ensure the future fertility of the planet. In a way, we owe our existence to them. The food we eat and the air we breathe are legacies of the soil they helped create. We are the children of the giants, living in the world they built, held in the cradle of their ancient labor. The mystery of their exact nature still lingers. Despite all our technology, there are still debates among scientists about exactly how they lived and how they reproduced, leaving a veil of mystery draped over their memory. They refuse to be fully categorized, existing in the twilight space between our definitions, reminding us that the universe is fuller and stranger than we can categorize. This mystery is a lullaby, a gentle reminder that we do not need to know everything to be at peace. We can simply marvel at the existence of such wonders without needing to dissect them. We can let the Prototaxites stand in the museum of our dreams, tall, silent, and unexplained, guarding the secrets of the deep past. As we leave the Devonian era, we carry its stillness with us. We leave behind the giant spires and the knee-high mosses, drifting forward in time, but we keep the feeling of being small in a world of giants. It is a feeling that puts our own problems in perspective, shrinking them down until they are no taller than the ancient moss. We are safe in the timeline of the Earth, just one more small living thing finding its way under the sun and the stars. The giants are watching over us from the deep past, their silence a long, slow blessing on our sleep. If we could adjust our eyes to see the microscopic world, the air around us would suddenly cease to be empty space. We would see that we are walking through a dense, glittering ocean of life, a silent blizzard of biological particles that swirls and eddies with every breath of wind. These are the spores, the microscopic seeds of the fungal kingdom, released in numbers so vast that they defy human comprehension, filling the atmosphere with a living dust. Botanists calculate that the air we breathe contains thousands of these tiny travelers in every cubic meter, floating silently around us like invisible companions on a journey to nowhere. It reveals a world that is teeming with potential, a universe where the empty spaces are actually full of life, waiting patiently for a place to land and begin again. This invisible abundance reminds us that even when we feel alone or when the world seems empty, we are actually surrounded by life, held in a suspension of infinite possibility. The sheer scale of this release is a testament to the generosity of nature. A single, humble meadow mushroom can release billions of spores in a single day, and a large bracket fungus can release trillions over the course of its season. If we could see this release with the naked eye, the mushroom would appear to be smoking, sending up a continuous thick plume of white or pink smoke that rises gently into the forest canopy. It is a silent fountain of life, an outpouring of self that holds nothing back, giving everything it has to the wind in a supreme act of faith. It teaches us the beauty of abundance, of giving freely without counting the cost, trusting that if we send enough of our goodness out into the world, some of it will surely find fertile ground. The mechanism by which a spore is launched is a marvel of fluid dynamics known as the buller's drop. Deep within the gills of the mushroom, on the microscopic pedestal where the spore rests, a tiny droplet of water begins to condense from the humid air. This droplet grows slowly, swelling with moisture until its center of gravity shifts, and suddenly it merges with a second film of water on the spore itself, creating a rapid shift in weight. This instantaneous movement acts as a catapult, launching the spore outward with an acceleration of thousands of times the force of gravity. Yet it happens so quickly and on such a small scale that it creates no sound. It is a water-powered cannon, a launch system built entirely on the gentle properties of dew, proving that water, the softest of elements, can generate the force needed to begin a new life. In this we see that softness can be a propellant, that the gentle accumulation of small things, like drops of water or moments of rest, can eventually launch us into our greatest journeys. Once airborne, the spore enters a realm of absolute weightlessness. These particles are so small and so light that gravity loses its hold on them, and they become subjects of the air, ruled entirely by the currents of the breeze. They do not fly, they drift, surrendering all control to the movement of the atmosphere, rising on thermals of warm air and sinking in pools of cool shadow. It is the ultimate act of surrender, a release of all agency to simply float where the universe takes them, turning and tumbling in the slow-motion ballet of the wind. We can invite this feeling into our own bodies tonight, imagining that we too have become weightless, that we have cast off the heavy anchor of our worries and are drifting free and light in the safe currents of sleep. Spores have been found in the upper reaches of the stratosphere, floating miles above the surface of the Earth, traveling across oceans and continents on the jet streams. They are the astronauts of the biological world, sailing the high, thin winds of the planet, looking down on the blue globe from a place of silent, frozen peace. They connect the forest floor to the edge of space, weaving a thread between the dark soil and the bright stars, proving that even the lowest organism can touch the heavens if it is willing to let go. This high-altitude drift suggests that there are no limits to where we can go in our dreams, that once we close our eyes, we are free to travel to the furthest reaches of peace. In a poetic twist of science, these spores helped create the very rain that they need to grow. Meteorologists have discovered that fungal spores in the atmosphere act as biological condensation nuclei, providing the solid particle needed for water vapor to freeze around and form ice crystals. These crystals eventually become heavy enough to fall as rain or snow, returning the water to the earth and triggering the growth of the next generation of mushrooms. It is a beautiful, self-sustaining loop. The mushroom sends the spore to the sky, the spore weaves the cloud, and the cloud sends the rain back to the mushroom. This connection shows us that we are active participants in the climate of our own lives, that the thoughts and feelings we send out can eventually return to nourish us in the form of blessings. The durability of a spore is one of nature's greatest engineering feats. Wrapped in a coat of complex polymers similar to the material of insect shells, a spore is built to endure extreme cold, radiation, and desiccation. They are like microscopic time capsules, capable of surviving for years or even centuries in a dormant state, protecting the spark of life within a fortress of biological armor. They drift through the harshness of the world without being harmed, safe in their own design, waiting for the signal that the journey is over. This resilience offers us comfort, that at our core we too are built to last, that we have an inner sanctuary that cannot be touched by the storms of the world, a place where our spirit waits safely for the spring. As they drift, they form a kind of biological stardust. When sunlight filters through the trees in shafts of gold, the dust motes we see dancing in the beams are often these very spores, turning the air into a suspension of living gold. They sparkle in the light, turning the simple act of breathing into an intake of stars. It paints the air as a precious substance, a medium that is thick with magic and history, encouraging us to breathe deeply and consciously. Tonight, as you breathe, imagine you are inhaling this golden peace, drawing the quiet resilience of the forest deep into your lungs, letting it settle in your chest like a calming weight. The landing of a spore is a game of chance played on a planetary scale. Of the billions released, only a tiny fraction will land on a patch of soil that is moist enough and rich enough to support growth. The vast majority will simply fall and become food for other organisms, or become part of the soil structure, contributing their tiny bodies to the collective earth. But in the fungal philosophy, this is not a waste. It is an offering, a way of feeding the world that sustains them. It teaches us that the outcome is not as important as the act of reaching out, that it is enough to send our dreams out into the world without demanding that every one of them takes root. We can rest in the knowledge that nothing we do is ever truly wasted, that every effort contributes to the richness of the whole, even if we cannot see the immediate result. There is a specific geometry to their flight path. When released from a bracket fungus on a tree trunk, The spores fall initially due to gravity, but then are caught by the turbulent air currents that swirl around the tree. Fluid dynamicists have modeled these paths and found them to be intricate spirals and helices, complex mathematical curves traced in the air by these tiny travelers. They dance their way down, tracing invisible patterns of beauty that vanish as soon as they are made. Art created for no one but the wind itself. This secret beauty reminds us that the journey itself is the art, that the path we take through life is a unique and beautiful tracing, regardless of where we land. We can visualize our own thoughts tonight, following these slow, spiraling paths, drifting gently downward, circling slowly until they come to rest in the quiet of the mind. In the winter, when the world is frozen, they lie dormant in the snow, or drift in the cold, dry air, waiting for the turning of the wheel. They represent the promise of return, the guarantee that green life will rise again when the sun warms the earth. They are the seeds of hope scattered across the bleak landscape, invisible assurances that the cycle has not broken, only paused. This winter presence comforts us in our own dark times, reminding us that the potential for new growth is always present, hidden and safe, waiting for the warmth to return. The microscopic texture of the spore wall is often incredibly complex. Under an electron microscope, these tiny spheres are revealed to be covered in spikes, ridges, nets or warts, distinct to each species like a fingerprint. These textures help them catch the wind or stick to a passing insect, providing a grip on the world that helps them travel. It shows the attention to detail that nature lavishes on even its smallest creations, crafting the invisible with the same care as the mountain range. We are reminded that we too are crafted with care, that every detail of our being serves a purpose, helping us to navigate the currents of our lives. Ultimately, the drift of the spore is a lesson in trust. The mushroom cannot walk to a new home. It cannot choose where its children will live. It can only release them, letting go with a supreme confidence in the processes of the world. It trusts the wind, it trusts the rain, and it trusts the soil. Tonight, you are invited to practice this same trust. You can release your grip on the day. You can let go of the need to control where you are going or what will happen next. You can simply release yourself into the care of the night, drifting on the soft currents of sleep, trusting that you will land exactly where you are meant to be. You are a traveler in the dark, light, and unburdened, floating in a vast, safe ocean of air. As the last rays of sunlight fade from the canopy and the forest is draped in the velvet cloak of true night, a different kind of magic begins to stir in the undergrowth. While the birds sleep and the daytime flowers close their petals, certain members of the fungal kingdom are just beginning their work, igniting a silent, spectral fire that burns without heat. This phenomenon is known to science as bioluminescence, but in the old folklore of the woods, it was whispered of as foxfire or fairy fire, a mysterious pale glow that emanates from rotting logs and damp stumps. It is a light that belongs entirely to the earth, a soft terrestrial constellation that mirrors the stars above, turning the dark forest floor into a quiet mirror of the galaxy. In this scene, we are reminded that darkness is never absolute, that even in the deepest shadows, there is a hidden light waiting to reveal itself, if we are patient enough to let our eyes adjust. The chemistry behind this glow is a masterpiece of biological engineering. It relies on a reaction between a light-emitting pigment called luciferin and an enzyme called luciferase, a partnership of molecules that dates back millions of years. When these two compounds meet in the presence of oxygen, they release energy in the form of photons, creating a steady, luminous emission that requires no electricity and no fire. It is the same magical chemistry that powers the firefly, but in the mushroom, it is not a flash or a signal, but a continuous steady beam, a lighthouse that never blinks. This steady persistence teaches us the value of constancy, of maintaining a quiet inner light that does not waver with the changing winds, but burns with a calm, even resolve through the night. Physicists describe it as cold light because nearly 100% of the energy produced is emitted as light, with almost no energy wasted as heat. If you were to touch a glowing mushroom in the dark, you would feel no warmth, only the cool, damp flesh of the fungus, radiating a light that is purely visual. It is a light that illuminates without burning, a gentle radiance that offers clarity without the violence of fire, preserving the cool sanctity of the night. It suggests a way of being in the world where we can be brilliant without being consuming, where we can offer illumination to others without burning ourselves out, maintaining a cool and peaceful center. The color of this fungal light is almost always a ghostly shade of green. Specifically, it usually sits in the green part of the spectrum, around 520 to 530 nanometers, a wavelength that the human eye is particularly sensitive to in the dark. It creates an emerald ambiance, painting the rotting wood in hues of jade and sea glass, a supernatural color that looks like it belongs in a dream rather than reality. It is the color of nature's deep magic, a signal that this is a living light, the visual signature of a life force that is vibrant and active even while the rest of the world sleeps. Bathed in this green glow, we can imagine ourselves in a healing chamber, surrounded by the color of growth and renewal, safe in a womb of soft emerald light. One of the most famous producers of this light is the honey mushroom, Armillaria. While the mushrooms themselves are modest, the black shoestring-like rhizomorphs of the mycelium that permeate the wood are capable of glowing with surprising intensity. In the days before electricity, loggers and miners would sometimes gather pieces of this glowing wood to use as primitive lanterns, placing them in their helmets to guide their way through the pitch-black tunnels of the earth. These punk wood torches provided just enough light to see the path ahead, a gentle guide that didn't destroy the night vision, proving that nature has always provided the light we need to find our way. It comforts us to know that the path is marked, that even in the deepest underground or the darkest night, there are natural beacons left for us, glowing softly to show us the way home. The evolutionary reason for this glow is a subject of quiet debate and wonder. The leading theory suggests that the light is a beacon meant to attract nocturnal insects, beetles, flies, and moths, who are drawn to the glow like ships to a harbor. These insects land on the mushroom, perhaps seeking a mate or a meal, and in doing so they pick up the sticky spores on their legs, carrying them off to new parts of the forest when they fly away. It is a silent invitation, a way for the mushroom to hail a taxi in the dark, using beauty as a lure to spread its children to new lands. It teaches us that attraction is a powerful force, that by simply shining our own light and being our true selves, we draw in the opportunities and the helpers we need to expand our lives. There is a specific mushroom known as the jack-o'-lantern that glows for a different reason. Omphallotus olearius grows in clustered orange clumps at the base of trees, and while it looks like a delicious chanterelle, at night its gills glow with a faint, eerie green light, a warning signal perhaps, or a remnant of an ancient function we no longer understand. It sits at the base of the oak trees like a cluster of forgotten pumpkins, glowing with a secret fire that belongs only to itself. It stands as a guardian of boundaries, a beautiful reminder that not everything is meant to be consumed, that some things exist simply to be admired from a distance in the reverent quiet of the dark. The experience of seeing foxfire requires a shift in our perception, Because the light is often faint, one cannot simply walk into the woods and expect to see it immediately. One must sit in the darkness and wait for the eyes to adjust, a process that can take 20 minutes or more. It demands that we slow down, that we turn off our bright artificial lights and surrender to the natural darkness, allowing our biology to recalibrate to the rhythm of the forest. Only when we have fully accepted the dark does the light reveal itself, starting as a faint blur and sharpening into a distinct glowing map on the forest floor. This is a profound lesson for our own lives. Often, the answers or the beauty we seek can only be found when we stop running, turn off the noise, and sit quietly in the unknown until our vision clears. In the Victorian era, there was a fascination with these fairylands. People would bring glowing wood into their homes to marvel at the cold fire, creating a sense of wonder that bridged the gap between science and folklore. They imagined that the rings of glowing mushrooms were dance floors for sprites and spirits, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. While we now know the chemical equations behind the glow, the sense of enchantment remains. Science has not stolen the magic, but rather deepened it by revealing the complexity of the mechanism. We can drift into sleep with this image of a fairy tale forest where every step is illuminated by a soft, magical glow, and where the world is far more benevolent and beautiful than we usually perceive. There is a rhythmic quality to the production of this light. Recent studies have shown that some fungi regulate their bioluminescence according to a circadian rhythm, glowing brightest at night when the insects are active and dimming during the day to save energy. Even in the eternal darkness of a laboratory incubator, the mushrooms continue to cycle their light in time with the setting of the sun outside, remembering the rhythm of the planet even when they cannot see it. It is a biological memory of the day-night cycle, a synchronization with the great turning of the earth that beats in the cells of the fungus. It reminds us that we too are rhythmic beings, that our bodies know when to rest and when to wake, and that we can trust this internal clock to guide us into sleep. The glow of the mycelium is often hidden inside the wood. Sometimes a log looks completely ordinary on the outside, dark and rough, but if you were to break it open, you would find the interior pulsing with light. The light is internal, contained within the heart of the wood, a secret treasure that is held safely inside the structure of the tree. It suggests that the most profound light is often the one that is hidden inside, the inner radiance that we carry within us, that may not always be visible to the world, but which illuminates our own structure from the core. Tonight, you can connect with your own inner bioluminescence, a quiet, cool light in the center of your chest that glows just for you, keeping you safe and warm. In the rainforests of Brazil, there are tiny mushrooms known as ghost fungus. These mycen species are small and delicate, growing on fallen leaves and twigs, creating a galaxy of tiny stars on the ground. Walking through such a forest is like walking through the sky, with stars above and stars below, a disorientation of light that makes one feel as if they are floating in space. It dissolves the ground, making the heavy earth feel light and permeable. You can let go of the feeling of heaviness in your limbs, imagining that the bed beneath you is made of these tiny stars, lifting you up, suspending you in a field of soft green light. The silence of this energy, fire crackles, electricity hums, but bioluminescence is completely silent. It is an energy transfer that makes no sound, a pure expression of light that disturbs nothing in the environment. It is the visual equivalent of a whisper or a thought moving through the darkness without friction. It invites us to lower our own volume, to seek a mode of existence that is quiet and efficient, radiating our presence without the need for noise or clamor. In this silence, we find the deepest rest, a place where the senses are soothed and the mind can finally stop its chatter. For the ancient people, this light was a sign of the continuity of life. To see a dead log glowing with light was a powerful symbol that death is not the end of energy, but merely a change in its form. The energy that was once the tree has become the fungus, and the fungus has turned that energy into light, sending it back out into the universe. It is a comforting assurance that the spark of life is never extinguished, only transferred, passed from form to form in an eternal chain of brilliance. We can close our eyes knowing that we are part of this endless flow, that our energy is part of a closed loop of light that will never truly go out. As you drift deeper, visualize this forest of lights. See the soft green glow pulsing gently on the trees around you. It is a cool, healing light. It is guiding you deeper into the safe, velvet darkness of sleep. You are a traveler in the night, and the way is lit. There is nothing to fear in the shadows, for the earth itself is holding a lantern for you. Follow the ghost lights down, down into the quiet. In the quiet, dewy meadows of the morning, we sometimes stumble upon a geometric mystery that has captivated human imagination for centuries. We find a perfect circle of mushrooms, or a ring of darker, taller grass, etched into the landscape with a precision that seems unnatural, as if a giant compass had been used to draw a line upon the earth. For generations, folklore whispered that these were fairy rings, the magical dance floors of spirits, where elves and pixies held their midnight revels, leaving behind a charmed circle where the grass grew greener. But the scientific truth of these formations offers a story that is even more enchanting than the myth. It is the visible signature of a single expanding consciousness that has been growing outward for centuries. This radial symmetry reminds us that life, when left undisturbed, naturally seeks balance and expansion, radiating outward from its center in a perfect, harmonious wave, touching everything around it with equal grace. It begins with a single spore landing in a favorable spot, germinating and growing outward evenly in all directions to search for food, creating a circular colony of mycelium underground. As the colony expands, the mycelium at the center eventually consumes all the available nutrients and dies off, leaving behind a living, advancing edge that moves further and further out, like a slow-motion ripple on a pond that never stops. It is a ring of life chasing the horizon, a biological shockwave that travels at the speed of inches per year, leaving behind the exhausted past to constantly embrace the nourishment of the future. It teaches us a profound lesson about moving on, that to keep growing, we must sometimes let go of the center, let go of where we started, and allow our energy to move outward into the new, fertile ground that awaits us. There is a hidden gift that these rings leave behind in the soil. The reason the grass often appears greener and lush inside the ring is that as the old mycelium in the center decomposes, it releases a rich store of nitrogen and minerals back into the earth, acting as a potent fertilizer for the plants above. The fungus, in its dying and its growing, is constantly conditioning the land, turning its own history into food for the grass, ensuring that the path it has traveled becomes richer than it was before. It acts as a benevolent gardener of the wild, a steward that improves the world simply by passing through it, leaving a trail of abundance in its wake. In this, we find the comfort of legacy. The hope that our own passage through life, however quiet, might leave the ground beneath us a little richer, a little softer, for those who come after. In the grassy hills of England and the plains of France, there are fairy rings that have been measured to be over 700 years old, expanding silently, while empires rose and fell, while wars were fought and peace was made. They are the quiet clocks of the landscape, marking time not in seconds or hours, but in seasons and centuries, their slow expansion a testament to the power of persistence over speed. To stand inside one of these rings is to stand inside a vessel of deep time, to be held by a living boundary that has maintained its shape and its purpose through the chaos of history. It invites us to slow our own internal rhythm, to step out of the frantic pace of the day and sync our heartbeat with the slow, centuries-long breath of the ring. But even these ancient rings are young compared to the true giants of the fungal world. Deep in the Blue Mountains of Oregon, hidden beneath the soil of the Malheur National Forest, lives an organism that challenges our very concept of what it means to be an individual. It is a single specimen of Armillaria ostoi, the honey mushroom, which genetic testing has revealed to be one continuous, genetically identical entity. This humongous fungus, as it is affectionately known, covers an area of nearly 4 square miles, stretching its microscopic threads across thousands of acres of forest floor, weaving the landscape into one massive, singular being. It is a sleeping giant in the truest sense, a colossal life force that rests just inches beneath our feet, so vast that we can walk across its back for hours and never leave its embrace. This hidden immensity humbles us, reminding us that the largest and most powerful things in the world are often the ones we cannot see, the ones that lie low and quiet, holding the world together from below. The age of this titan is a matter of awe-inspiring estimation. Based on its current size and its slow rate of growth, scientists believe this single mushroom is at least 2,400 years old, and potentially as ancient as 8,650 years. It may have begun its life when the pyramids were being built, or perhaps even back when the last glaciers were retreating from the land, sprouting from a microscopic spore in a world that was vastly different from our own. It has lived through the rise of civilizations, the changing of climates, and the turning of millennia, all while silently, patiently growing in the dark, cool earth. To think of it is to touch eternity, to feel the reassuring weight of something that endures, something that survives the storms of time simply by holding on and growing slowly. The secret to its immortality, unlike animals, which have a defined lifespan and a period of senescence, fungi possess the capability for indeterminate growth, meaning they theoretically never have to die of old age as long as they have food and space. They are biological rivers that keep flowing, constantly renewing their cells, repairing their DNA, and expanding their reach, free from the programmed obsolescence that defines our own biology. It is a form of life that is fundamentally open-ended, a story that does not have a predetermined final chapter, but writes itself continuously across the pages of the soil. This concept of open-ended time allows us to relax our grip on the future. We can see our lives not as a countdown, but as an unfolding, a continuous process of becoming that does not need to rush toward an ending. To span such vast distances, the honey mushroom forms specialized structures called rhizomorphs, which look like black, elastic shoestrings capable of bridging the gaps between tree roots. These rhizomorphs are the highways of the organism, protected by a tough, melanin-rich outer rind that shields the delicate inner tissue from damage and drought, allowing the fungus to travel through barren soil to find new resources. They are the supply lines of an underground empire, moving water and nutrients across miles of forest to ensure that every part of the giant is fed and sustained. It paints a picture of resilience, showing us that when the ground between us is barren or difficult, we can build tough, protected bridges to reach each other, ensuring that the connection remains unbroken. In the winter, the giant sleeps, but it does not leave. When the snows cover the blue mountains and the ground freezes, the growth of the humongous fungus slows to a near halt, entering a state of metabolic preservation. It rests beneath a blanket of snow, a massive, dormant consciousness waiting for the thaw, holding its energy in reserve with a patience that spans eons. It is the ultimate hibernation, a deep, restorative sleep that lasts for months, proving that rest is not a weakness, but a necessary part of a long and enduring life. Tonight, you can join this giant in its rest. You can imagine yourself curled up in the safety of the earth, protected by the snow, waiting patiently and peacefully for the warmth to return. There is no brain in this giant, yet it possesses a form of wisdom. It navigates the complex landscape of the forest, finding the most nutrient-rich trees, avoiding obstacles, and managing its vast resources without a central nervous system. It operates on a decentralized intelligence, a distributed knowing that exists in every tip of every hypha, making decisions based on the immediate feeling of the earth. It is a wisdom of touch, of direct contact with reality, proving that one does not need to overthink to survive. One simply needs to feel, to respond, and to move toward what is nourishing. We can let go of our own need to analyze and plan every detail, trusting instead in our intuitive sense, the quiet knowing that guides us without words. The existence of such an organism blurs the line between the singular and the plural. Is it one thing, or is it trillions of threads acting in unison? In the world of the fungi, the distinction does not matter. The many are one, and the one is many, living in a fluid state of cooperation that makes the question of identity irrelevant. It suggests a state of being where we are not isolated islands, but parts of a larger whole, connected to the people and the world around us in ways that make us part of a greater, single organism of humanity. This thought dissolves the walls of the ego, allowing us to melt into the collective quiet, to feel the comfort of belonging to something much larger than ourselves. Sometimes the forest above changes, but the fungus remains. Fires may sweep through the blue mountains, burning the trees and clearing the brush, changing the face of the landscape in a matter of hours. But the giant underground is safe, insulated by the soil, untouched by the flames that rage above. After the fire has passed, it is the fungus that is still there, ready to begin the work of decomposition and renewal, ready to welcome the new seeds that will fall. It is the constant beneath the chaos, the stable foundation that survives the surface storms. You have this same stability within you. Beneath the shifting emotions and the events of the day, there is a deep, quiet part of you that remains untouched, a bedrock of peace that is always there. To fall asleep thinking of the humongous fungus is to rest on a living mattress of impossible size. Imagine the vastness of the network stretching out for miles in every direction, a soft white web cradling the roots of 1,000,000 trees. It is a hammock woven by nature, vast enough to hold the entire forest and strong enough to hold you. It breathes slowly, a respiratory cycle that takes seasons to complete, a rhythm so slow it feels like stillness. You are small, you are safe, and you are held by the ancient, unmoving arms of the earth. Drift into this vastness. Let the size of it comfort you. Let the age of it soothe you. As our journey through the fungal kingdom draws near its close, we turn our attention to the most intimate gift that these organisms offer to us, the gift of healing. For thousands of years, long before the invention of the microscope or the modern pharmacy, healers and shamans understood that the forest held the keys to our well-being, locked away in the quiet bodies of the mushrooms. But the greatest medical discovery in human history did not come with a loud bang or a flash of lightning. It arrived on a gentle breeze, drifting through an open window in London, to land softly on a forgotten glass dish. We are speaking, of course, of the discovery of penicillin, the miracle mold that changed the course of humanity. It reminds us that the solutions to our greatest problems often arrive unannounced, drifting into our lives on the currents of chance, requiring only that we are observant enough to notice the quiet miracle growing in the corner. The organism responsible for this revolution is a humble blue-green mold known as Penicillium. When Alexander Fleming looked at his petri dish that morning in 1928, he saw something that looked like a tiny velvet island floating in a sea of danger. Around the mold, the harmful bacteria had simply vanished, unable to survive in the presence of the chemical signals released by the fungus. This was not a violent battle of microscopic armies, but rather the creation of a zone of inhibition, a circle of peace, where the fungus had established a boundary that no harm could cross. As our journey through the fungal kingdom draws near its close, we turn our attention to the most intimate gift that these organisms offer to us: the gift of healing. For thousands of years, long before the invention of the microscope or the modern pharmacy, healers and shamans understood that the forest held the keys to our well-being, locked away in the quiet bodies of the mushrooms. But the greatest medical discovery in human history did not come with a loud bang or a flash of lightning. It arrived on a gentle breeze, drifting through an open window in London, to land softly on a forgotten glass dish. We are speaking, of course, of the discovery of penicillin, the miracle mold that changed the course of humanity. It reminds us that the solutions to our greatest problems often arrive unannounced, drifting into our lives on the currents of chance, requiring only that we are observant enough to notice the quiet miracle growing in the corner. The organism responsible for this revolution is a humble blue-green mold known as Penicillium. When Alexander Fleming looked at his petri dish that morning in 1928, he saw something that looked like a tiny velvet island floating in a sea of danger. Around the mold, the harmful bacteria had simply vanished, unable to survive in the presence of the chemical signals released by the fungus. This was not a violent battle of microscopic armies, but rather the creation of a zone of inhibition, a circle of peace, where the fungus had established a boundary that no harm could cross. As our journey through the fungal kingdom draws near its close, we turn our attention to the most intimate gift that these organisms offer to us: the gift of healing. For thousands of years, long before the invention of the microscope or the modern pharmacy, healers and shamans understood that the forest held the keys to our well-being, locked away in the quiet bodies of the mushrooms. But the greatest medical discovery in human history did not come with a loud bang or a flash of lightning. It arrived on a gentle breeze, drifting through an open window in London, to land softly on a forgotten glass dish. We are speaking, of course, of the discovery of penicillin, the miracle mold that changed the course of humanity. It reminds us that the solutions to our greatest problems often arrive unannounced, drifting into our lives on the currents of chance, requiring only that we are observant enough to notice the quiet miracle growing in the corner. The organism responsible for this revolution is a humble blue-green mold known as Penicillium. When Alexander Fleming looked at his petri dish that morning in 1928, he saw something that looked like a tiny velvet island floating in a sea of danger. Around the mold, the harmful bacteria had simply vanished, unable to survive in the presence of the chemical signals released by the fungus. This was not a violent battle of microscopic armies, but rather the creation of a zone of inhibition, a circle of peace, where the fungus had established a boundary that no harm could cross. It is a process of redemption, a biological forgiveness where the sins of the industrial age are washed away by the white threads of the fungus, returning the blackened soil to a state of purity, This offers us a deep hope that no damage is permanent, that there is always a way to heal the scars we have inflicted, and that nature possesses an infinite capacity to forgive and repair. In the aftermath of disaster, the fungi are often the first responders, after the forest fires, after the volcanic eruptions, or after the atomic blasts. It is the fungi that appear first among the ashes, stabilizing the soil and preparing the ground for life to return. They are the trauma surgeons of the ecosystem, arriving when things are at their bleakest to stitch the world back together with their living threads. They do not judge the destruction. They simply begin the work of repair, millimeter by millimeter, turning the wasteland back into a garden. In our own lives, when we feel broken or burned out, we can trust that this same regenerative force exists within us, a quiet fungal resilience that is already at work stitching our spirit back together. There is also a medicine for the mind found in the forest. For centuries, indigenous cultures have used psilocybin mushrooms in sacred ceremonies, not for recreation, but for the healing of the soul and the opening of the mind. Modern science is now beginning to understand what the shamans always knew, that these compounds can help to dissolve the rigid patterns of anxiety and depression, quieting the default mode network of the brain. It is like shaking up a snow globe that has become stuck, allowing the thoughts to settle into a new, more peaceful pattern. It represents a softening of the ego, a temporary dissolving of the walls between the self and the universe, allowing us to remember that we are connected to everything, even without ingesting them. Simply knowing that such a key exists in nature, a key that unlocks the doors of perception, reminds us that our minds are capable of vast, expansive states of peace that we can access through meditation and rest. The reishi mushroom, known in ancient China as the mushroom of immortality, is another guardian of our health. With its varnished red-brown cap that looks like polished wood, it has been revered for thousands of years as a tonic for the spirit and a stabilizer of the immune system. It does not work by fighting a specific disease, but by supporting the body's overall balance, acting as an adaptogen that helps us cope with stress. It is the wise elder of the medicinal world, standing calm and solid, offering us its strength so that we can stand unmoved amidst the chaos of life. It teaches us that true health is not just the absence of sickness, but the presence of balance, a state of equilibrium where we are flexible enough to handle whatever the world throws at us. In the dark dampness of the forest, we also find the chaga mushroom. Growing as a black, charcoal-like mass on the side of birch trees, it looks like a burnt scar, unappealing and rough. But inside, it holds a treasure trove of antioxidants, glowing with a rich golden-orange interior that is full of healing compounds. It survives the harshest winters of the north, absorbing the energy of the birch tree and concentrating it into a potent medicine. It reminds us not to judge by appearances, that something rough and weathered on the outside may hold the purest gold on the inside, and that our own scars and rough edges may be the very places where our deepest strength resides. The very act of foraging for these medicines is a therapy in itself. To go out into the woods with a basket, scanning the ground with soft focus, is a form of moving meditation that calms the nervous system. It requires us to be present, to tune our senses to the subtle patterns of the forest floor, leaving behind the abstract worries of the screen and the schedule. It connects us to our ancestors who walked the earth in the same way, eyes cast down searching for the gifts of the land. Tonight you can go on a mental forage. Imagine yourself walking slowly through the mossy trees, your basket empty and waiting, your mind clear and focused on the simple beauty of the search. The antibiotic network of the soil protects us even when we are not aware of it. The soil under our feet is not just dirt. It is a massive external immune system that keeps pathogens in check, ensuring that the water we drink and the food we eat. The fungi are the guardians of this underworld, patrolling the soil and neutralizing threats before they can ever reach us. We are protected by a shield we cannot see, held in the safety of a complex living filter that has been refining the world for millions of years. We can sleep soundly knowing that we are not defenseless. We are supported by a planet that has evolved specifically to sustain and protect life. Ultimately, the medicine of the fungus is the medicine of connection. It heals by connecting the roots of the trees, by connecting the nutrients to the plants, and by connecting us to the earth. It repairs the broken bonds, weaves the gaps, and dissolves the barriers. Healing, in the fungal view, is simply the restoration of wholeness, the remembering that we were never separate to begin with. As you lie here, let this medicine of silence wash over you. Let it dissolve the barriers of your stress. Let it weave your tired thoughts back into the great, quiet tapestry of the universe. You are whole. You are healed. You are home. Thank you for drifting through the quiet kingdom of fungi with me tonight. We have wandered far from the noise of the waking world. We have stepped off the paved roads of our daily lives and sank deep into the velvet softness of the ancient woods. We have traveled from the high, drifting currents of the upper atmosphere, where the spores dance like dust motes, down into the deepest, darkest embrace of the soil, where the white threads weave the world together. We have witnessed the patience of the lichen eating the stone, the silent fire of the foxfire glowing in the dark, and the ancient slumbering breath of the giants beneath the earth. You have been a patient traveler, willing to slow your pace to match the rhythm of the moss and the root. We have felt the profound connection that binds every living thing, the invisible hands that hold the forest up, and the gentle, endless cycle of return that turns the fallen leaf into the fertile ground. It is a world that does not rush, a world that does not worry, and now it is a world that welcomes you as one of its own. If these calm, curious explorations help you unwind, I invite you to like or subscribe. It helps other sleepy souls find their way here too. And now, let all of that drift away. Let the images of the mushrooms and the forests dissolve gently from your mind. You do not need to remember the names of the fungi, or the science of the spores, or the chemistry of the soil. Those facts were merely the path we walked to get here. Now that you have arrived at the destination of rest, you can leave the path behind. Let the concepts fade like mist in the morning sun, leaving only the feeling of peace they brought you. Your mind has done enough work for today. It has thought, it has planned, it has worried, and it has learned. Now, it is time to lay all of those burdens down at the edge of the forest. Imagine yourself placing your thoughts, one by one, onto the soft green moss. See them sinking into the earth, being absorbed by the gentle wisdom of the soil, composted into silence. You are free from them now. You are empty, you are light, and you are clean. The forest around you begins to dim. The green canopy above turns to a deep, comforting indigo, and then to a soft velvet black. The glow of the foxfire fades into a gentle, rhythmic pulse, matching the slow beating of your own heart. The world is closing its eyes. The trees are settling into their stillness. The wind has slowed to a whisper, and then to silence. You are no longer an observer. You are part of the deep, safe earth. You are held by the gravity of the planet, a heaviness that is not a burden, but a comfort. It is the feeling of being anchored, of being secure, of being home. You are safe in the wood-wide web of existence, connected to the stars and the soil, held in a web of life that will never let you fall. There is nothing left for you to do. There are no more distances to cross, no more lessons to learn. The universe will continue its dance without you for a while. The mushrooms will continue to grow in the dark, the mycelium will continue to weave its threads, and the earth will continue its slow, steady rotation. You can let go of the controls. You can trust the night to carry you. Feel a wave of relaxation spreading from the top of your head, flowing down through your neck, your shoulders, your arms, and your back. It flows like warm, slow water, dissolving any remaining tension, turning your muscles into liquid. It flows down through your hips, your legs, all the way to the tips of your toes. Your body is heavy, sinking deeper and deeper into the mattress, as if you are sinking into the deep, soft layers of the forest floor. You are a seed planted in the dark, safe and warm. You are a spore drifting on the wind, weightless and free. You are the silence between the trees. Rest now. Let the darkness cover you like a soft blanket. Let the silence fill you like a healing medicine. Close your eyes. Drift. Sleep. Good night.